10 seconds.
Okay. We just jump in there and start right away. Oh, wait, where'd you go? Oh, why did it not? Yeah.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Live exclusively for WCPT in Chicago, standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
Well, welcome to the show, everybody. How are you this fine morning? There's a lot going on sort of internationally, nationally, proto-nationally. There's so many elements of this that are fascinating to me as the world attempts to normalize what is effectively a major shift in the back to the current abnormal in terms of America's stance in the world, America's position in the world. And when it comes to a shift like we're looking for, and Johnny, I don't know why all of a sudden I lost your video on the stream, but we will figure that part of it out in just a moment. Yeah, it's curious to me. It might be that I freaked out my stream thing. It might be that everything works so wonderfully, and then this is what happens when I try to. It's so cuckoo. Anyways, so over the course of the last few weeks, the right-wing storyline on all of these, on the upcoming Biden trip overseas, the President G summit, any of the policies that are going up, any of that stuff is resulting in a lot of ways in this kind of clamoring that the world is ending. It's not just that there are some difficulties. It's not just that there's the normal aspects of international relationships that have dogged the United States for years or been a source of support. There he is. Now he came up. Now it's finally come back up. That's great. I'm a little choppy, but you look great. So over the as we've led up to this, the storyline that we've seen repeatedly is that Biden is ruining the world, and Trump had it just where it needed to be, and we were this close. If they'd only built the last 4 panels of the wall, there would be no immigration problem. If we'd have just continued with his tariffs on China / his big deal for China, then
we just continued to not have any plan to vaccinate the nation.
Yeah, it would have just purged. We would have had, how many jobs would have been filled because so many people wouldn't be alive to fill those jobs? Like unemployment goes down when, because dead people don't file for UI, I think is the issue there. So there has been a lot of the big storyline is that, of course, that Biden was going to wreck everything as soon as he came in. And in terms of the Trump presidency, it turned out that it had a freshness date, that there was a best used by date of January 20th of this year, because apparently within weeks, everything accomplished, with the exception of the giant corporate tax he gave, of course, the one for individuals was temporary, but the ones for for corporations was permanent. And in doing that, he has basically wiped out the entirety of the Trump presidency in the same way that a lot of people were complaining about the fact that here comes Trump and just wiping out as many of
all the Obama things,
of Obama's things as he could, except for things like the ACA and DACA and these very resilient policies that, while some had been put through the legislature and therefore undoing a law is much more difficult, and then the executive orders that Obama put forward had been thoroughly vetted by the Department of Justice and the legal team at the White House and had been put through the ringer so that if there were any challenges to it, they would withstand a legal challenge for the most part as best they could as executive orders. And then if anybody undid them, just by a stroke of the pen, it would be very hard for them to just do that. In the case of DACA, it's very specific in that you can't coax people out into the open. It was kind of like getting rid of don't ask, don't tell via executive order in that regard. put people in a very precarious situation because the law hadn't been tested in that regard. So you might have a situation where people come out of the closet while they're in their military service. The next president undoes that executive order, and these people are done for because they've already outed themselves. You can't go back into the closet afterwards. And the same thing applied to DACA. And that's one of the reasons why both have withstood a lot of the legal fights against them from the right. Now, the Biden administration, he had a stack of EOs on the first day he was there. These executive orders that were basically like, okay, no more of that, no more of that, no more of that, no more of that. It's just like, let's get back to normal policy. Even the 700% jump in us receiving refugees from all over the world, this stampeding 700% brings us back to the same number that Bush Sr. had when he was in office, but somewhere in the order of like 112 to 115,000 people a year. And after a tremendous amount of vetting, the difference between, of course, the numbers during Bush 1 and now, of course, is the vetting aspect of it, is that there's an extra level of vetting going on. Now, of course, Biden goes over, and the first thing you notice when you're looking at all this stuff is how happy and normal everyone looks in the pictures. Trump is not there to shove anybody out of the way. There's not this really awkward back and forth, with where there's no pictures of everyone surrounding Biden trying to talk sense into him over NATO. I don't know why we don't just collapse the whole thing. Pooty Poot told me it stinks, and therefore, and we even have. This summit that's coming up between Biden and Putin. It's going to happen at this 12th century villa, this little mini castle that's been happening there. Yeah, they got it as a strategic look. It's funny, one of these things where I'm sure the conspiracy theorists are going, kind of crazy about their meeting in this. It's probably the site of some, pagan ritualistic space, that's been, doused in adrenochrome or some nonsense. But the reality is it's very difficult for the Russians to sneak in beforehand and hide microphones in walls that are made out of granite, over 1,000 years ago. So, 800 years ago. And so in terms of, just safety and all that stuff, like checking out a venue, I would imagine that the Secret Service and other places this place is basically stone. You're not hiding any, and if you hide anything in here, it's in the fixtures. We can manage that. We can follow that. So over the course of watching, the two of these guys meet, especially considering the relationship we have with Russia right now, the recent hackings. The obvious state-aligned actors that are attacking our meat processing plants, our gas pipelines and stuff. And it's no surprise, by the way, that the Republicans are running on this idea that, they respected Trump. And so therefore they don't respect Biden, and therefore that's why they're attacking us. Well, first of all, they did attack us during Trump, and nothing was made of it. And we'll talk a little bit about something I mentioned on my stream this week, that the Biden team has formed a ransomware task force that retrieved Bitcoin that was stolen.
That was kind of an amazing headline.
Yeah, and it made Bitcoin and all these other cryptocurrencies drop because of that. And that in of itself is a story that will hold.
Because I did wonder, what happens if we put the full force of our intelligence behind this?
Yeah, and the idea that we somehow can't do that, and a lot of these folks, quite frankly, it's not surprising that they think they're safe behind this wall of cryptocurrency, and have for quite some time, because no one's tried. Because no one was, because during the Trump administration, there was this kind of stand down on Russia order as much as they could in the DOJ and at CISA. And then, of course, after the election, Trump fired the head of CISA because he didn't agree with him that the election was stolen. And this is the guy who's, the head of the organization that would fight back against ransomware attacks and all these kind of things. So he removed the head of the department, replaced him with someone below there who was basically a suck up, and then it took the Biden administration a little while to get their person in. And during that gap, we find out this is when all these ransomware attacks are happening, because there's basically no one minding the store in a greater sense, and there's not a strategy in place. Once the strategy is in place, oh my God, the first ever ransomware retrieval of Bitcoin using a break into the Bitcoin wallet by the people who committed this ransomware attack, which caused a huge dip in the market.
So amazing.
It's
not to totally derail, but like along the same lines, did you hear about the FBI's fake private messaging app that decimated Australia's organized crime?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Tell them. Yeah.
They're going to be like, now that it's out there, I was like, oh no, well now everybody knows. But the sub-headline said they're going to be arrests for years and years,
right,
from all of the information that they gathered, because people thought that they were communicating on some new private messaging app, and it was run by the friggin' FBI.
I have to say, I'm a little bit convinced that Parler was a psyop because it was so pitifully run and so moronically protected. I mean, they used the demo version of the security software and then refused to pay for the full version, which is like a monthly fee of like $15. It was, wow. It was, and then 7 terabytes of information from Parler dumped on the web, including the full photos. And Parler stores the metadata for your photos that you upload. When you upload a photo to Twitter or Facebook, like Facebook had this thing a long time ago that included that stuff, and now they don't anymore. And basically what they do is you post a copy of the photo on your website. It doesn't take the metadata from your phone and say, this is where it was shot, this is who's in it. You have to add all that stuff after the fact.
This is where that Confederate flag is that I'm posing in front of.
Parler allowed all that stuff, it just took all that information, where you were, your latitude and longitude at the moment you took the photo, what your phone is, all the details.
But don't get that vaccine.
Yeah,
don't
but
get
that's
it.
right, because you'll get tracked by nanobots, right? That's the big thing, right? We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. I want to talk about a couple of the biggest hits against Trump that are happening at the G7 as the world is, quite frankly, literally moving on from the Trump era as if it never existed in a lot of ways. And it's going to take a little while to get over some of the damage that he did just to our national psyche and the dent he put in our ethics as a people. But it's going away. I got news for you. It's going away. We'll be back right after this. This is a Hal Sparks radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. WCPT820.com is the website. And of course, Sexy Liberal. On the Sexy Liberal, thanks. On the Sexy Liberal Podcasting Network, it's the Hal Sparks Radio podcast, mega worldwide. We'll be back right after this.
I didn't know I'd get finger guns in return. That feels like a win.
I should hope so. All right, I'm slowly but surely eliminating the as best I can the choppiness. I took out some of the browser source things that were causing trouble, and now it seems to be smooth. Fingers crossed it will stay that way. It was driving me crazy.
That I can change on my side?
I don't think so at all. No, there is not. It's just simply it's the life of it. That's how it works. But it sounds great and it's good and we're fine. And probably the next time we'll use it, because it's the new Mac M1 chip and the little Mac Mini I'm running, it learns over time what you like. It's very strange. Oh. It's like a digital butler in that regard. So, Totally Jersey says, you are far more optimistic about that than I am, Hal. Wish I was secure in it going away. No. I mean, I'm watching it happen online. Don't get me wrong, there will always be somebody jockeying to be the next Trump or somebody, the equivalent of a populist right-winger, quasi-libertarian, faux Christian, and all that kind of stuff. But there was a certain, accidental magic to the guy from The Apprentice who's got the illusion of being a rich, bloviating jerk with, 3 trophy wives in a row that appealed to this particular crowd, that there's nobody really in line, to pick up to pick up the slack. They just don't exist, you know. And there's some that, you know, might try, and we'll watch as they arrive. But yeah.
1 minute.
Thank you.
Lady B.
Yay, Lady B.
I ran 9 miles this morning and I saw a deer.
Oh, wow. That's sweet.
It was very sweet. And it was quite accustomed to seeing people on this trail. It was just like, whatever.
Just didn't care. Just did not care.
Did not care.
Right.
I loved it. It didn't care to the point where it wasn't even willing to give me a good photo op. It was just like, you know what? My butt itches right now.
Yeah,
I don't care if you got your phone out.
It was just rubbing
It's
his
like,
butt on a tree?
No, just like kind of doing the little reach back and nibble.
Oh, yeah.
Scratch.
Yeah. I mean,
which I can't do anymore.
Understood. Yeah. I mean, never stop trying.
No.
There's some very flexible elderly people. I'm just saying.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the House
We call
Sports
them
Radio
flexibles.
program, mega worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So one of my favorite parts of this, and there's a lot going on at the G7. They had a bunch of surfers against sewage who paddled out into the water around the gathering and are wearing masks of world leaders, and they're trying to push back against sewage in oceans and the like. By the way, something that all the G7 countries are actually working on. Like, these are the countries that were engaged in the Paris Accord. These are the countries working on pollution. These are the ones actually doing it. None of them are going to do this off the coast of China anytime soon, because A, they won't be heard, and B, their lives will be in danger. It's just silly. They'll be viewed as foreign marauders and probably, blown from the water. But I appreciate the effort.
But, I mean, we don't want sewage. That's good.
Yeah, no. I'm glad they're doing it. They're preaching to the choir, but I mean, but I just hope the waves were good. That's, you know what I mean? There's a certain point where, like, most of the protests about the G7 are stuff that, where the desire, at least on face, has been met by a lot of, and the only areas where it wasn't is areas where the Trump administration decided to just undo the progress, including bringing Russia back into the fold, making it the G8 again. The whole story that he was going to have the thing at Mar-a-Lago and that he was going to invite Putin so he could be next door at this, it's just so he could listen through the wall with a brandy glass, like a snifter, right? Whatever. So one of the biggest stories coming out of this is that after this summit that Biden is going to have with Putin, they are not going to have a joint press conference. If you'll recall, the joint press conference that, I think in 2017, like kind of the first one that he had with Putin, is the one where he said, I can't imagine, I can't imagine why it would be Russia to go after, right? And basically making every excuse he could, just sitting there nodding at everything that Putin said, and then shaking hands with him palm up the entire weekend, which was this weird, show of weakness thing where it's one thing to just reach over and that's just kind of lazy how your hand falls, but it was a very obvious dog belly moment that he kept doing repeatedly, and I couldn't figure it out. It was one of the, you know what I mean, where you just kind of roll over and show your belly, right? And it's many ways in line with the idea that Trump was like, people will respect my strength, and Obama bowed to the Saudi prince, and then we of course have the gif of not only Trump bowing to get the little medal around his neck, but doing a mild curtsy at the end of it. Remember that little bleep? Like he just does this little, it's adorable.
Now, I imagine you probably covered this in one of your live feeds, but his pants.
Trump's, yes. So for those, yes, the North Carolina Republican Party gathering where
that speech was insane.
Yeah,
I mean, he was barely there.
Yes. And it is just going to get worse. And that's why after it, I tweeted, the GOP holding up Donald Trump as the beacon for the party of the ubermensch of Republican everything is on a collision course with the reality of Trump the man. That no matter what they do to try and lift this guy up as this magical being, I gotta say, he's a mess. He's a mess on all fronts. And he's facing, I don't doubt that beyond the normality of age, his bad diet, his intellectual incuriosity that would make him, less apt to read or do puzzles or take Preverin or whatever. I think he probably leans more on the Pervitin crowd as far as brain drugs go. That his use of alleged stimulants, which Noel Kassler talks about to no end during his years on The Apprentice and all that those lead to aging you a little faster. Those are always a challenge, right? In your 70s.
Yeah, and they lose their efficacy after a while, which is sort of evident because he's slowing down.
And in many ways, I think on top of that, stress plays a major role in people's lives as far as their physical well-being. And for a guy that was born on third base and thought he had a triple, is a second generation slumlord who turned his father's actual real estate company into effectively a branding organization in less than 5 years as he took it over. The reality is that he's used to winning by accident. He's used to, winning even when he's lost, right?
I don't know why that made me laugh.
He's used to like everybody on the other team loses, stares into the sun when the pop fly is coming their way, the easiest drop shot in the world, and they miss it because, the world, and he thinks it's because he hit a home run and knocked it out of the park. And in this, I think that losing the election as soundly as he did, and the ongoing failures because of it, because he continued to fight it, had he arguably taken this stress on and made it, just dealt with it in terms of its, the reality that he just lost. If he'd have just taken that one big stress hit, that everybody, like we saw Mitt Romney, pumping gas with a beard on the way to San Diego. Gore went into basically hiding.
Yeah, Al Gore. That was the next one. I was like, wait, there's another one. He turned into a gorilla.
Yeah, right. It's got to hit you. You know what I mean? You got to take it on the chin.
Gorilla. Oh my God, there it was. The whole time.
Yes. He turned into Al Gorilla, and it's an inconvenient beard, but that's bad enough. But then when you go, you know what? No, I really won, and we'll see by Saturday. By this Saturday, you'll see I actually won. And then, no, I didn't. Well, no, but by the time they certify, they're going to call it for me. It's all going to get turned around, and then that doesn't happen.
You'll see in December.
Yep, and then January, and the 6th, and then his own people couldn't do it, storming the castle. They could. He sent his minions. If this was an old biblical or British monarchy story, this would be one of the biggest failed attacks on a castle in history, right? Just miserable. And yet. He continued to he persists with this lie, and every time it hits him, and it's not going further. Like the Arizona one is falling apart hilariously. There's infighting between people who are even more into the recount, whatever they want to call it, the audit, than the people who are doing it, than even the cyber ninjas, and they're arguing about, no, I'm not going to put somebody in place to verify certain things. It just looks worse and worse. And it looks increasingly like the Republicans there may have tried to help Trump win by gussing up the vote a little bit, just goosing it in a direction that they might have helped him. And they're like, dude, don't look in those boxes. Those are all fake Trump votes. Like, it's what it looks like. I don't necessarily believe that's the occurrence, but that behavior-wise, it makes way more sense why the Republicans would push back against their own recount in a lot of ways, because they're afraid that Trump supporters will discover that they actually tried to help him and failed, that the whole story about the algorithm breaking and they had to print more ballots sounds more like a failed Trump endeavor than something that the Dems, who according to the Republicans control the media, control big tech, control U.S. government, the world governments, are managing some sort of major coup of the world, trying to reshape it into some sort of Marxist socialist monstrosity. And they have that power, but somehow it was their algorithm that broke. You know what I mean? Like that makes no sense. So anyways, we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. I'm going to try something.
The WCPT 820 Club is here. How do you join, you ask?
It's easy. All you have to do is head over to WCPT820.com to register.
Be the first to know of WCPT events and contests. Once you're registered, you can take part in caption contests, polls, trivia, surveys, and games.
Go to WCPT820.com, look for the WCPT820 Club tab in the menu, and follow the instructions.
Chicago, I hear ads, by the way.
Contests running on WCPT 820 are open.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Break this out. Video, picture. There we go. Maybe that does it. Maybe that smooths it. Maybe it makes it worse. It's hard to say. Maybe I hide this page and it just kind of puts it away. I don't know. Let's put that back in there. I think there's still an issue with browser source things, even with this thing. But audio is so good. I hesitate to pass up on it. There was a more scene options. Add a scene too. I don't know what those are. What is rainbow puke effects? I'm not forced the remote sender to issue a keyframe to all scenes to fixing pixel smearing issue. I see. Oh, rainbow puke fix. I see. I thought that said FX. That was funny. Hi, chat room. By the way, sorry if I'm not saying hi. Dealing with the tech this morning in terms of trying to keep things smooth. It's interesting that once we get started and once we get animated again, we're fine right now. This is not, and then it suddenly, I don't know what happens. Very curious. Maybe it's if I keep that pad open, or maybe it's because I open other pages and it gets confused. Maybe if I turn off, maybe it's trying to do two things at once. Maybe that's what happened. Oh, that could be it. Maybe that allows it to be a little smoother. I'm just cutting down on the number of frames that it needs to do stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Hi, Jennifer.
10 seconds, sorry.
No problem. Motang. We are at, I think, 715 or 717 patrons now.
I'm Art.
Woo. I'm Bobby.
The host of Where Are They Now? Now let's get back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Hey, listen.
Hey, listen. I love how one's sort of Pauly Shore, one's hardcore Chicago, and he's just off mic. It's like they don't let him in the studio all the way. Is that how that show runs?
Is this a CPT show that I'm not listening to?
Yeah, I guess so. It's yeah. So you must. I just want to see if they both have to share a mic and one of them keeps muscling the other one out. That's what it sounds like sonically.
It does.
So, for the record, the Biden Putin summit that is coming up at this obviously at Stonehenge or something, wherever they're having it, is going to be followed up with a solo press conference from President Joe Biden, and he will be speaking on what they spoke about and what he's comfortable with them speaking about and all those issues, and like a normal president that doesn't want to stand up there like he's on a leash. Because that was one of the weird things about the Trump-Putin, codependent like presser that they had afterwards, where like it felt like okay, well, I want to be there when I want to watch you say what you're supposed to say. You're going to say what you and of course Putin of course praised Donald Trump as very talented this week and a big personality, and he said that Biden is less apt to make impulsive decisions, and which is true. Compared to Donald Trump, everyone has better impulse control. There are there are people in prison for arson that have better impulse control now.
Yes.
Than Donald Trump. So over the course of, because they're meeting in Falmouth, England, which sounds like foul-mouthed a little bit, like the way it's written, which considering Biden's language choices in the past, not so, could work. Not that I'm throwing stones. I clearly live in a glass house that's shaped like a big F word. But Boris Johnson and his wife, Carrie, met with President Joe Biden and his wife, Dr. Jill Biden. She wore a jacket that said love on the back. This, of course, caused consternation, fear, and panic across the right-wing stratosphere because we don't need to be loved. We need to be feared because that's, I guess, our only option. And that whole, and let's be honest, that Jesus dude was a complete sucker. That would never work now. That's, by the way, that's a near quote from right-wingers surrounding Donald Trump right now about, that the idea of turn the other cheek. Don Jr. himself said that to a Christian pastor on a show he was on this week, pitching, his show, saying, the turn the other cheek, that wouldn't work anymore. Just basically the New Testament, garbage, throw it out. It's not practical. As if it ever was. The madness is striking. That said, they gathered in, the leaders elbow bumped when they gathered for they're still doing slight COVID things. They're wearing masks inside, largely because that's the protocol still in England, and also for the record, we do not have definitive science, on the efficacy of the vaccine and the and herd immunity and your own natural immunity against all of the variants. And these are world leaders from a multitude of countries that have a multitude of other countries that come and go, even in their own countries, even with those protocols. So there's a chance that the Delta virus version, the Delta variant gets in.
It's a more intense mixture than your standard daycare gathering.
Yes, it is. And so the extra precautions are similar in many ways to the sweeping of the environment by the elite security forces of each of these countries for the safety of their world leaders, because if something were to happen to these world leaders, were they to get sick or injured or harmed in any way, it affects not only the fact that, oh, darn, we got to get a new leader, but it also dips the markets, destroys the outlook for, our recovery from the pandemic. Like it can savage the economic recovery of any of these countries and damage them in a myriad of ways, depending culturally on how they would react to this kind of thing, putting them behind all the other countries, America, no less than anyone else in that regard. So if you're a thinking person, you would go, there are elements of unknowns. We need to tamp down on those unknowns as much as possible in this circumstance until we can get ahead of this thing. Yes, all the world leaders have been vaccinated. Do those vaccines protect you? Absolutely. With the variants that we know of, we don't know. We guess so. It seems so, but there's no definitive science on it because time will tell. Do they protect against any of the new variants that are happening? Do you need a booster shot to deal with these? These are still options as we roll this out. This is not by any means over. The red states have currently case rates in red states as far as deaths and illness are going up 3.4%. in most of the red states, that especially the ones that
are just because they're treating it like it's over without doing any of the vaccinating,
and because they have the majority of the anti-vaxxers in their states, whereas the blue states are seeing a drop of about 10%, and it's continuing. California, a state with 40 million people in it, has dropped 10%, is below 1,000, I want to say 500 in its death rate for the first time since the spike last year.
March.
Yeah, and so they're getting a handle on it. And by the way, for the record, those large numbers are not happening in the blue hubs of these cities. They're not happening in San Francisco. They're not happening in Los Angeles. They're happening a little bit in places like San Diego and a little bit in Sacramento, but they're largely the Stockton kind of areas, the places that statistically would have used to voted for Reagan, let's say, voted for Trump this time, and now have become hardline. They're the people arguing about separating, splitting California in half, right? To make a brand new red state. Which isn't going to happen, for the record, but good luck with that. Please keep clamoring about it. I'm sure Caitlyn Jenner will make it part of her platform as she goes forward with her campaign that is completely fueled by Trumpers. So, and by the way, as a way of kind of driving up, by putting a trans person at the front of the ticket, giving them some cover for all the anti-trans stuff they're doing across the rest of the country. It's pretty transparent, and the problem that they have is that
I see what you did there.
Yeah, there's no way that Republicans turn out to vote for her, and they allow it to just sit there. It's a sacrificial lamb kind of attitude. So, anyways, over the course of this, Boris Johnson has said, that there is intense cooperation between the world's democratic and technologically advanced nations. That America's leadership is clearly recovering, that they are, that across the board, all the world leaders, I think Macron said today, that it's great to have America back at the table, speaking like an ally. Macron said Biden has shown that leadership is partnership, which is going to drive the right wing crazy.
Yeah.
And is exactly my point, by the way, about what makes America crucial in these circumstances, is that somebody's got to be, it's why we have a president, a presiding officer over our government. It's why in all gatherings, someone is usually appointed an arbiter or is the point person for the gathering of all the countries. And the United States has traditionally played that role, especially when dealing with the G7. And the brooming, and especially in the brooming of Russia from it, is the greatest example of, moving from the G8 to the G7 as, almost a direct action against some of the other member nations, but specifically at movement of the United States. That's the sign of the United States, while working in partnership, taking a leadership position in the G7 and trying to direct the world's democracies, the world's high level technology countries to use their best efforts to kind of come together on whatever shared goals they might have, while at the same time pursuing their own national interests within means. It's when we looked at the Paris Accord and and all the panic about how it's really just an attack on the United States, and it's trying to undermine us, and we sell ourselves out to the European nations and yada yada. And when you really look at it, all the language in any of these things says, as long as it can be done without economic harm to the people of each country, as long as you can do it without, detrimentally affecting the economic outlook for your country, as long as it doesn't do more damage to your country, because some countries, it's like, we want to set our standard at this, at 2.5% or whatever. Well, if your country's already below that, that doesn't mean you pollute more. That's the target date. And all these things are sensible diplomacy, where you talk about it in normal terms, like adults, going, where all treaties, especially when they come to the environment, economic issues and stuff, end with a kind of do your best clause. And none of these have, these are not on like the Iran deal, where there are hardline lines, and if you cross this line, the deal's off. and they didn't cross that line. Trump just killed it anyways, which makes it hard to make those kind of deals in the future, because how do you set markers for another country and go, look, we'll operate fairly with you as long as you don't cross these lines. You don't cross those lines, and we still go against the treaty. What good is a treaty from a country like that? Well, we recognize that the treaties are between countries, but sometimes they're controlled by men like Donald Trump that will scuttle anything good. And that's, going forward, that's the part we're going to have to patch up. That's what takes time. That if you're going to enter into a deal, and that's why it will be partnerships with other countries. Like, you may not trust us because we just elected a guy like Trump who scuttled it, but the rest of the countries played nice, and we still kind of furthered it. The Iran deals stayed relatively structured or whatever. Right now, the tough part is that Venezuela and Iran are now partnering for munitions and all kinds of other stuff, fuel, and they're going around this because Trump broke the deal. And that leaves a really awkward partnership, which creates a potentially dangerous adversarial situation between us and Venezuela as a satellite response country from Iran. If Iran starts funneling money and arms from North Korea into Venezuela, then we have then it's basically a way for them to sort of pirate things up towards our southern border, and creates a geopolitical problem for us that wasn't there until the Iran deal was broken by Donald Trump.
Right.
That was effectively created by the slapdash approach that he has had. But in the meantime, there is a bunch of sort of recovery. They're spackling over the holes, and they are doing their best to do a fresh coat of paint on these things, and while checking for structural damage. And that's what the G7 is effectively having. Biden will also be meeting with Angela Merkel later this year. She is leaving office. She's done, but they're going to
term limits there.
I don't know if it's if she's stepping down. I'd have to look that up. But yeah, she will be leaving office. But she's coming to Washington. They're going to have this meeting. And there's still the Nord Stream pipeline stuff with Russia. That's been the big hang up with Germany. Germany has seen a rise in far-right extremism happening largely because of Russia, mucking about in their social media, mucking about in their groups, creating basically these beer push kind of groups within Russia. I mean, Putin famously murdered one of its dissidents in a park in Berlin, and it managed to get away with it in that regard. On a level that is striking. Didn't happen in Paris, didn't happen in all these but Germany interacted, literally tiptoeing around because of the energy source that they were going to need. Now, had Ukraine been more sound 3 years ago, and more available as a source for the rest of Europe, and to get, maybe Germany would have made the leap, but effectively didn't. So anyways, we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. What in the world is that weird sound? Sounds like typing. It's very odd. Can I highlight you? There you go. And then there's yeah, it's a weird little. It sounds like a cursor hitting the end of a line. When it hits and starts telling you that. Yeah. Can you say hi? So I can hear you, Johnny? Oh, see, I'm not. See, that's your audio. That's weird. Hold on. That's very strange. Let me try and I'm going to try and refresh you. Be careful. Here we come. I'm going to refresh the browser source during the break.
1 minute.
Thank you. Okay, let's see if it. Yeah, it's very weird. Reload it on my end? Is that what caused it? Nope. Yeah, that made it go away somehow. Can you hear me? Coming back in a second. Okay, now I can hear you, Johnny, I think. Should be able to.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I'm going to fix this in a second. I know it's possible, Johnny Million. I know it is possible. There it is. I think that'll be it. Can you say hi so I can hear you? Make sure. It's weird. It's choppy all of a sudden, and I don't get that. We'll figure it out. I'll work it out. It's very curious. Computer stuff. So, while my favorite storyline is obviously the dead presidents surfing off the coast of of Cornwall or wherever they were in what's got to be cold water. As an environmental pushback against sewage in the oceans, which I think is a fantastic thing. I think they're the members of the G7 who are all, by the way, I think they're all in the Paris Accord, especially now that we've rejoined it, are all working towards improving every aspect of their relations with environmentally amongst each other. You've got a huge number of protesters, kind of normal at this gathering. And the odd part is, it seems to be that perhaps everyone at the G7, I can't speak for obviously, the French or others, but the United States is increasingly aware that while there are absolutely legitimate protesters there who care deeply about the issues that they're pushing, it is now an ongoing strategy to manipulate protests or create them out of whole cloth at every turn against democracies around the world by Russia. That is 100% the purpose therein. That this is the key that they are, they're counting on as the cheapest way to undermine democracy and faith in democracies across the globe, is the idea that, and not for us, because I think a lot of us can differentiate the value of protesters and the disincentive of looting and rioting in that grouping, and go separate the message from the messenger sometimes, and understand that there's valuable social change or environmental change that needs to happen without panicking too much. But what this is really about is the people inside those countries, inside Russia, so that looking outward, our democracy always looks like a mess. And that there's always a problem. There's always discontent. Like, you think you got it bad. Look how bad it is in Germany and France with the Yellow Jackets, and in the United States and all these, because we find out, and I had, no one is surprised, I think, on an ongoing level that that Putin himself, has made it a very important point to kind of constantly deride democracies in general as being kind of chaotic and a pain in the butt, and that Facebook was a willing partner in a lot of these circumstances. And there was, lately we've seen a story where there was a digital marketing group run by Turning Points USA, which is a pro-Trump kind of college-age youth group of conservatives. And these folks created Facebook ads for Green Party candidates in a lot of crucial areas in an attempt to diminish the Democratic vote and make Democrats war with each other by, basically lifting these candidates up. And there's been a lot of talk about the kind of Russian Bernie bots posing as Bernie bros, not just lifting up the Bernie campaign and giving it the illusion of more supporters, but also causing unnecessary rifts between Bernie Sanders' genuine supporters and the Democratic establishment or other candidates' supporters. That basically setting people at war against each other instead of simply having a disagreement about policy and timing, which is largely how a lot of this plays out. There's a lot of overlap on the practicalities between, how Bernie Sanders sees Medicare for all happening and how Biden is presenting a single payer system initially. Biden basically saying, like, you need this right away. You can't just scuttle everything and try to start from scratch. You leave too many people in the dust and they will be harmed. And Sanders was aware of this and knew it would take minimum of 4 years to do this transition, and that you would need something like single payer to move people in that direction and build the structure over time and make sure that it's that it is sound enough to take the weight and necessary hits that a system like that would take. And that's a policy difference. And you can argue, the basis of that policy and how it's possible. And because a democratic society is about negotiating the possible. And you can do that peacefully, even as fervently as you believe in either side. What the Russians were attempting to do, and what their surrogates, the NRA, Turning Points USA, the Trump campaign, were doing, was to try and drive that up as much as possible. And we find out that Facebook was aware that these were fake ads, was aware that a right-wing group was making them, and that they were for candidates they do not support. That they were, they were there. And this is not just posting videos. It's one thing to create a fake account and let people find it organically, which was also one of the Russian tactics that happened, was that they would set up a fake BLM site or a fake, Muslims for Hillary site or those kind of things. And then they would basically fill it with content that was red meat for right-wingers. So they go, look what these Hillary supporters believe, when it really wasn't what Hillary supporters believed. It was what they had made up out of whole cloth to create this illusion that this was a broad-based idea, that all Muslims that support Hillary Clinton are of this ilk and blah, blah, blah. And they did this across a bunch of fronts. Well, Turning Points USA specifically hired this group and promoting Green Party candidates during the 2018 U.S. midterm elections. So remember, seats were lost. And the argument was that some of even the progressive candidates didn't win in areas where they should have won, arguably because they were, even though they would have probably run away with it in some degree, their leverage was taken down by the existence of a Green Party candidate who took the even further left group that might have glommed on the people who think AOC is too conservative, jump off. Yeah, honestly. Jump off onto a Green Party candidate or another candidate because they want to go further. And they also go, elections don't matter, but I'm still going to vote anyways, which is a very strange mentality. This was an organization called America Progress Now, not American Progress Now, which is always one of those standout things where I'm like, is this run by a person? Facebook was aware of the true identity of the advertiser. The conservative marketing firm Rally Forge. The deceptive nature of the ads, documents seen by The Guardian show, but the company determined that they did not violate its policies. Rally Forge would go on to set up a pro-Trump domestic troll farm for Turning Point Action, a sister organization of Turning Points USA, in 2020, earning a permanent ban from Facebook. So I want to say they were in Nevada or in Arizona. There were no policies at Facebook against pretending to be a group that did not exist, an abuse vector that has been used by the governments of Honduras and Azerbaijan, said Sophie Jang, a former Facebook employee and a whistleblower who played a small role in the investigation of the Green Party ads. She added, the fact that Rally Forge later went on to conduct coordinated, inauthentic behavior with troll farms reminiscent of Russia should be taken as an indication that Facebook's leniency led to more risk-taking behavior. We have to take a break. They didn't originate the idea of a troll farm by any means, but they knew that it would benefit them. and they basically learned the key points from what Russia did in the 2016 election. This is who's guiding it. If when materially they're there, if not, they're just by example. The Republican Party is following Putin's example at every turn because they envy his long-lasting power in the country, and aren't afraid of how he got it. We'll be back right after this. I'm going to try another shot at you.
Hal, you were very choppy, but I was able to understand you.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to fix that. It might be the thing I'm trying today, and I might call you back on Zoomage, Johnny. We'll try that again, see if that solves our issue. Because I can't restart in the middle of the show, so that's always the tough part. I can, however... let's see, where are you? Go back to this. Okay. I am going to restart my clean feed with Chicago and just make sure that that's all set up and going. And then this almost worked. I think it's the browser source aspect of it. Again, it's so weird that during the breaks, it seems smoother. I don't know what that is. Right? I don't know why that would be. It's not like it's any more heavy lifting. Maybe it's the length of time or the pause between stuff, or maybe it's the only time I'm looking. I don't think you can hear. No, I can't. Hold on. Yeah. I cannot. So give me 1 second. I'm going back to me, and we'll try. Yeah. It's still that weird. It always takes it for a moment before it loads on there. So we'll take this out. Because I can't even have these things in and like muted, or I have to remove them to create the smooth video. If they're on in the background, these things just kill me. So, all right, let me try this again. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. Hang up. There we go. Okay. Clicking this off. I was trying something and I was hoping for something, and then something fell apart. So it was worth a try, and the only way I can try it is live. So boo-hoo. Hopefully Zoom won't be too jerkish on this, but we'll try it. There we go. Oh, Lord. There we go. What in the world? Oh. Let's see. Copy invite link. I love doing this kind of work during the middle. Hi, everybody. Putting that in there. Done. Hopefully Johnny will join us in a minute. And then I think, let's see, video is, no, cam link, there we go. Fingers crossed. And I'll have to bring Johnny in once he pops in. We're in the break. Hi, chat room, by the way. Hello. Hi, everybody. Maybe the connection with CPT. Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe a DDoS, attack. I would like to think I'm that important sometimes. Hey, there he is. Admit. Yay, it's Johnny Man. View.
Yay.
Let's see. Hold on. Yeah. Where are you? Pin.
I'm here.
Yes, you are. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. All right, and then I have to add you on the display capture, and then add a source, and the whole thing goes. Try to do this thing instead. We're gonna try it, and what the heck? Who knows? Yeah. So pop. There he is. And then we'll shrink him down. Sorry about all the behind. Oh, I know. I just take this and put you down there. There you go. And then move you over here, and then scroll you up, and something like that. And we try to do the thing. Who knows? All right. Option, drag down. Come here, you. Yay! And now we rise. There we go. And then we try it again. And now I just have to clean up the video so it's not too noisy in the background. There you go. All right. So I think you're okay. It's a little smoother.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes, and I can hear you, and I think you should be able to be heard fine by Chicago. Fingers crossed.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be back to relative abnormal. Oh, crap. Yeah. It restarted in there. There we go. Hi, Chicago. I'm here. We're here. Hello.
Okay. Phew.
Yes, sorry. I restarted the connection just in case it was choppy, so pardon.
I had added an extra minute. Is okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming back after this.
Okay. Man, Molly Jong Fast has a great article on the Daily Beast on about Trump's the kids hitting bottom because nobody gives a crap anymore. Now I think I think she's a little off on Jared and Ivanka because I think that's what they want. I think they want to be sort of yeah.
Cal, we do have one caller, David from North Miami Beach.
Okay.
It's regarding about Jeff Bezos.
Regarding Jeff Bezos.
He has a comment about him.
Okay. The fact that he's I stepped down from Amazon's CEO board or whatever.
I think so, and also about the trip he's astronaut.
Oh, going to space, right?
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Damn pus-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
I've been trying to fix the choppiness. We're just straight up max headroom today. That's just how we're going to live. But as long as the audio's good, that's all we care about for the radio, at least. And I love you guys in the chat room for just dealing with it when it happens. It's no surprise. By the way, we do have a caller, and I probably because it's a little different topic than what we were talking about. Before I get because I'll never get to the topic I think they want to bring up. What was it again, Lady B? Who do we have?
David from North Miami Beach.
Okay, excellent. David, welcome.
Greetings, time changer.
Yes, how are you?
Good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
You sound nothing like Max Headroom.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. Although it was a very cool thing when Johnny and I were in school. It was amazing level of technology. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
The critics joke that yes, it's a two-dimensional character, which is still one more than you find in most TV shows.
That's right.
Yes. So, right. Well, I've been wishing that that Dr. Fauci will take the example of John Hurt from the movie Day of the Doctor and start wearing a bandolier of sonic screwdrivers, syringes, whatever.
Right.
Just to remind Republicans that he's tougher than they ever will be.
Right.
I think I'm going to try to pitch Jeff Bezos a TV show since he thinks he's figured out the secret recipe.
Right.
Have a show called Liberal Media, which will instantly give us hate watching down here in South Florida, with, say, Rena Sofer as Stephanie Miller, Michael Emerson as Tom Hartman, maybe Elaine Boozer as the afternoon host.
Right.
Just as to summarize what we saw in 2020, and if that takes off, then bounce around the different election years, change their hair, clothing, whatever, to help summarize, hi, this is what the liberal media was doing while everyone else was goofing off and talking about dumb wedge issues. So
Well,
I'm not an expert like you, but I've had some success with writing. And unfortunately, Jeff Bezos would probably go for it if he wasn't busy prepping for launch.
Sure. Well, he's for those of you who don't know, he's taking an 11-minute flight into space, which is fascinating, very futuristic sounding, and incredibly dangerous. I mean, it's top of the mountain stuff, I suppose. But I guess he heard the news that the Japanese mice eggs came back to Earth, and they gave birth to they used these eggs that were stored in freezing on the International Space Station to make new mice, and the mice are not. They've been exposed to all this cosmic radiation, and yet they are completely healthy and normal. They have no genetic mutations. Nothing's wrong with them. So the idea that was one of our big concerns, time and space exposed to that radiation, would it affect your ability to have, would it cause birth defects and that kind of stuff? Apparently this is the first step. So I guess this is maybe just sex in space is the next frontier. But Bezos himself has decided to do this. I'm for it. If you've made that kind of money and you want to risk yourself for humanity, knock yourself out. I mean, we're doing it with school teachers, and we've lost a couple. I think that's up to you. Knock yourself out. And again, I don't have the chip on my shoulder about Bezos that a lot of people have, largely because the man started making an online bookstore. And so that makes him okay in my book to some degree. Now, the question is, as it grew, were they capable of dealing with the growth? And did they have the normal kind of push-pull with labor as it went forward over time? And, is there a balancing act between the two? And it's warehouse work, which is very hard, and yada, yada. Like, that's all stuff you have to work on. But the impetus of a optional service that somebody made up out of whole cloth that nobody needs, that's as much attention as it gets, is second to Walmart.com, which is almost entirely responsible for 50% of our trade deficit with China. Almost all of that, like 250 $1 billion or whatever, or 500 billion. Yeah. So we like 250 of it goes through Walmart. It's an extraordinary number. I mean, we're selling, what was it, $48 billion worth of F-150s every year. It's crazy. Like the level of like when you really look at the numbers of what's being sold worldwide, which is, by the way, why the expansion of the American economy and why people can look forward to it over the next 10 to 15 years is because as markets open up, meaning that you make a widget in the United States and enough people like it, if you bring 25 cents worth of value to 1 billion people, you're a multimillionaire. And that's they're Etsy level shops that, if they had the reach and the production capacity, could absolutely make the next 300 billionaires. And that's just going to be how, as the market expands and as global trade expands and as it becomes less, the centralization is going to be around shipping and getting stuff everywhere, not the creation aspect and not the production aspect, especially on the more organic side of things. So that's something to look forward to economically. There's a great book it's very optimistic about the economic future of the world. And one of our big fears was overpopulation. It turns out that the populations are actually going down in a lot of countries. That the world population does kind of like have almost a self-governing aspect that's somewhat environmental, somewhat health-based, somewhat cultural. And of course, as education and economic opportunity and social safety nets and those kind of things expand across the world, people don't need to have 19 grandchildren to make sure that 10 of them survive, to make sure that 7 of them can work in the shop, to make sure that 5 of them make enough money to support you in your dotage, right? So one of the more all the more reason to expand education for people across the world as is in a way that like the depopulation conspiracy theories all over the world could only hope to achieve the kind of things that just education and baseline material resources will do. But it's a fascinating part of that's the futurism discussion that I love to have on my own in my own private conversations is a fascinating thing because I'm a lot more hopeful about it than a lot of other folks in that regard. And we will see over the next year, like right now with the spikes in violence, some of the aspects of, American culture that seem to be on the brink, especially as the QAnon thing falls apart and a lot of the people are bifurcating into these multitude of little weird groups, some of them very dangerous, threatening county officials and da-da-da. These are all remnants of the Trump administration and the Trump presidency. And without him as their head, they will fade. Because you can't back this pony anymore. The QAnon folks are being confronted daily with this reality. Sidney Powell, literally at a QAnon gathering in Dallas, said there is no great plan. Trump is not playing 5D chess. He's not the magic person fighting the cabal. It just isn't true. It was never true. It was never going to be true. And these folks are face to face with that. I don't know if there has been, since Jim Jones or the remnant Manson family that weren't in California, if there's been a decimation of followers of a group like this in maybe, I don't know, in my lifetime, certainly. I'm sure there have been, some young moon kind of offshoot groups, or Scientology's The Process, which was another offshoot of theirs, that have fallen apart and their leaders fallen, that Nexium or whatever it was, the weird sex cult with the branding nonsense, like a very small group of people. But there's got to be a psychological shock that happens when you confront that you were in a cult, you bought the whole line, you've got to rebuild your life and your personality from scratch, you were sold a bill of goods and you bought it hook, line, and sinker. It tells you more about yourself than it does about the person leading the thing. And that's where a lot of these folks are. They are in this weird panic mode, and they're looking for solace anywhere they can. They're clinging to the idea that Marxists are invading the schools and that diversity training is really critical race theory, when it's really just, can we all get along largely, and we can be honest about American history without deriding America and still understanding the value it has for all the immigrants that are coming here, for example. Both are possible if your brain can handle complex ideas. And theirs clearly can't, because of the daddy issues that they have, that they found a hero in Trump. But that collapse is happening, and it's happening to the kids. And I want to talk about that after we come back, because where's Ivanka and Jared? I mean, we've seen a little bit of Eric running around. Laura Trump just said she's not running for office, and I mean, Don Jr.'s got the best.
That was a threat.
It wasn't really. That's why it was so easy to stop. And, even on their end. We'll be back right after this. Yeah. Overall, like, I did a thing on, and people in the chat know, I've been amazed at, like, the pathetic nature of Trump's kid, of Don Jr. especially, as he's selling selling his book, doing $500 cameos, and his rumbles make like 31 cents a piece. It's weird, and they're trying to build this up to almost see, like, which one will we buy or partner with, these low-end social media groups, but they don't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you talk about, like, acquisitions of social media companies, they always happen in the billions of dollars. And though Trump is allegedly a billionaire, it just ain't there. They're living off those campaign donations to his PAC. They're eating with that money. I eat. Thank you. Hello, Lady B was about to be.
I'm sorry. It's 45. We have 40 seconds, and I have a Robert from Florida and Paul from Seattle.
Excellent. I'll get them after the top of this story. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I eat off of I eat super chats. That's what feeds. And and that keeps my lights on. The patrons help us, keep the show going, and gear and mortgage, all the stuff life stuff. And I have zero shame about that. That's how I'm making my living right now, because everything was shut down during COVID. I had to build this from scratch. Worked every day to do it.
This is Doris Davenport.
These guys are supposedly billionaires.
Doris Davenport Show.
Yeah.
All local, all the time. Now let's get back to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
We were just having a conversation, Johnny and I, during the break about the fact, and I want to thank our regular viewers and the people in our chat right now and our patrons at patreon.com/HalSparks, people who have, Venmoed and contributed to the show, and they do super chats and that kind of stuff on the show, because that's what made my daily stream possible at all, and kept me afloat during a time when, as an actor, all production is shut down. As a stand-up comedian, all the clubs are closed. For the last year, I just transitioned into something where I could pay my mortgage, feed myself and my kid and my girl and her kid, and keep the lights on, and do something productive where I feel like I'm giving, at the same time. Like, I started doing it for free and just doing it anyways, whether it worked or not. This is what I was going to do, and I have. And by the way, looking in awe at a lot of the gamers and people who are on Twitch, if you go to fwank.com, FWANQ.com, that'll take you to the Twitch page where you can subscribe with Amazon Prime, and it doesn't cost you a dime. I'm just saying. And I learned that little kitsch phrase from all these, gamer streamers who do the exact same thing, right? They have a career in this, and there's no, it used to be a little, he's a YouTuber, or, then it became influencer, which just means Instagram, quite frankly. And, building a career in social media is, has been a tumultuous ride, and has grown into something kids do, to something adults do, to something that, big news corporations can't live without as a secondary aspect, to something that you can make your own home in it, whatever that level is. You can be what's effectively a middle-class streamer, which is effectively what I am right now. That's what I do. I get it done, right? I'm not by any means, one of these people who's building their own studio someplace, hiring a bunch of people to sit around and laugh at my jokes because they're paid to, like Steven Crowder and the rest of the crowd, that follows him, the Yup Yups. And a lot of those groups, it's a thing. That's a next level thing, and and good on you if you're able to do that. That's fine. But I got into it, on the sort of semi-ground level in terms of last year, where I was like, okay, I've been doing our show. I've been streaming it every Saturday for about a decade now. I started, the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, started as a Ustream show. Where back in the day when Ustream was one of the first video streaming things, and it had a chat, and I was able to just do this, and I was doing it every Saturday. So we just tipped it over and made it radio too, and I cleaned up my language a little bit as best I could, and then that became a thing. And I did it for free forever, just as another way to get the show out and to talk about the issues that were important to me. It was like an act of citizenship. So a decade of doing it for free, so that I could speak about the issues. People could take my word for what I was saying, with whatever grain of salt they wanted to. They could weigh it against predictions and things I'd said in the past, see if I knew what I was talking about, and it just would live on its own. And then last year, this all happens, and we all have to do something, because I'm not going to not have my kid have health insurance, right? So I started looking to the legit money made in entertainment that streamers were doing, and you look at the mechanics of it. What are they doing right? What am I willing to do? What am I not willing to do? What is the kind of stuff I'm willing to do that is within my ethical window? I'm not pouring a bunch of cinnamon down my gullet and having a bunch of Lab Rats fans all follow and joke to death.
Can't
stop it. And so, but at my level, I grew up in Peaksville, Kentucky. I went to high school in New Trier with Johnny. I drove to LA with all my crap in my car when I was 18 years old to start my career. I called the 90s the Sisyphus years, because none of it worked. I would just claw my way up and fall down the hill every day. And then finally I got a toehold with TalkSoup. I've been able to build a career, and because of that, I've been able to make this happen while this is going on, and I will continue to do the stuff that I'm doing, and I have faith in my career, and I'm fine. That said, Donald Trump Jr. is a third-generation slumlord who was born with $10 million in the bank. Ivanka Trump has, and Jared made, hundreds of millions of dollars while her dad was in office. They all inherited the wealth from their grandfather that their dad, by the way, micturated away, in the words of the true Big Lebowski, micturated away in the 90s and had to borrow $56 million from his siblings, from their inheritance, just to keep the lights on. This was running money. This was not, there's a great opportunity that could make the company for the next years. We're tapped out right now, but if we get this $56 million, we put this on the line, this is going to be the casino that makes it. This is going to be, Trump Stakes is really going to take off. It wasn't that. It was just, how do you keep the lights on? And now, Ivanka and Jared are just off spending their money, being rich people. They have effectively, because they're not involved in the Trump organization right now, they might run into some tax issues later because she was, allegedly hired as a consultant while also being a staffer at the Trump org. So they were doing this kind of tax dodge, shuffling money with her, that she may end up being fine, but it's money she's got. Money they made, money that her dad carved out these trademarks for her and the other products. She's basically being, the Trump version of the Kardashian. And the idea is that there's a split in that family. That Ivanka thinks that the Trump name is going away, and Donald Trump Jr. is banking on it being a brand. And so Ivanka and Jared are kind of going off in their own corner with their own investments and their own stuff. And you watch, whatever her line is going to be called, it's going to be called Ivanka. It's not going to be called Trump anything. And whereas Don Jr. and Eric, everything will be stamped with Trump left and right, and that's what they're doing.
Trump.
Exactly. Yeah. So right now, Don Jr. is on a site called Rumble, and Rumble's one of the fallbacks that when people got kicked off of YouTube for anti-vax stuff, or calling the election a lie, or and again, you didn't get kicked off of YouTube for saying that the election was there was fraud or blah blah blah. You got kicked off for saying this person, this executive, basically doxing a human being with your own accusations that you had no basis for. That this woman in Fulton County, this black woman who ran these things, is a criminal and is like drawing attention to this individual in a way that is endangering their lives and is completely based on, BS that you're selling to your fans to try and boost your dad because you live off the brand, right? And so people got booted for that stuff. Dan Bongino, who is jockeying to become the next Rush Limbaugh. Bongino, who is looking for Kiki.
That had a real Cornholio vibe.
It definitely did. Bongino. So he bounced over to Rumble, and he's the number one thing on Rumble under cat videos. And so Don Jr. saw that money, saw that possibility, saw that cash sitting there on the table, and said, I want to get me some of this sweet internet cash. Maybe I can build my own thing as Don Jr., as the brand, right? Don Jr. was the brand. And he's got a little, in gold, up in the corner of his videos, Don Jr. is a little thing, right? Now, by the way, it says Donald Trump Jr., and it's in all gold, and it's a big @ thing on the graphics because it's not working. He needs Trump as the brand, or people don't care. So he's ran back to the daddy brand already in this. But he's went on a site like Rumble, unlike YouTube, where we have things like super chats. And by the way, thank you guys for those. Every single one's appreciated. No job is too big, no fee is too big, as the Ghostbusters would say. His videos, they're kind of like the AdSense on a YouTube video. When someone rumbles your video, they think it needs to go to the top. It's kind of a Redditing kind of a thing, right? That more people like it or give it a rumble, which is directly from them. It boosts it up in this line of top chart things, and you get money from it. Well, Don Jr.'s rumbles that I know of, any of his videos have never passed the $1 mark. And all of them are toilet paper vids, in that they go away the next day. These are not evergreens. These are not like you've been tying your shoelaces all wrong. Check out this new technique. And you're like, oh my God. And it gets passed around forever, like on Facebook, and people end up watching the shoe tying video forever from Brightside or some nonsense like that prints these kind of videos, and they have like 10 million
From
views.
Ebum's world.
Totally. So I've never seen him. I don't think I've ever seen him crest 61 cents, but it's definitely never gone over $1. And he is reading these talking points from somebody he's getting them from, Heritage Foundation, the Ben Shapiro Show, or he's just stealing them from other shows. Like he's watching a Steven Crowder video, making his own notes, and basically saying the same thing, but from his own mouth, which seems par for the course for the Trumps. That makes total sense. You know what I mean? It's just a copy of a copy of a copy. It's it's third generation Polaroid, and that's on a mimeograph that's been shot on a flip phone from 10 feet away. That's where they are right now. And I'm telling you, when considering where what the QAnons believe, or believed anyways, about the power of the Trump family, and not only his status as a leader fighting the cabal and blah, 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 but that his children are sort of an extension of his perfection. For them to be there that fast and having to scrap from the bottom, like somebody like me, who was definitely not born a millionaire by any stretch of the imagination, born in debt, arguably, and really, like welcome to the world. You owe about $30,000, and you have no job for a long time. In that, that this guy had that many resources, and is still, it is now making 61-cent Rumble videos. Because he's gotta, is stunning. And so if you think the Qs are going to be there for the next whoever wants the Trump mantle, and it's going to be enough for them, you're wrong. And if you think they're going to be anybody that Mitch McConnell wants to win, that the establishment Republicans and the vast majority of Republican voters want to win, they're going to be against that person. It's a mess. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to take some calls. 773-763-9278 is the number. We'll be back right after this. Man, this is... let's see. Yeah, so apparently, Don Jr., sold, Don Jr. and his girlfriend, Fox News host Kimberly Guilfoyle, just sold their house in the Hamptons for $8.14 million, a source close to Guilfoyle confirmed to the Insider. Wow. Double what they paid for it a little over a year ago. Sounds like a Trump. Double? Yeah, sounds like a Trump leverage deal. They bought it for $4.4 million in 2019. They did not list it publicly, meaning they had, this sketch money.
Laundering.
Mm-hmm. The home was not publicly listed, according to Page 6, who first reported the deal. James Gugliano and Sean Egan of Net Seekers brokered the deal. Per the Page 6, the agents didn't immediately respond to the request for... Yeah, they moved down to Florida to be near Dad. They're all moving there. They're all moving to Florida. They think Florida is their key to, and they're still running on what is effectively like electoral politics from 15 years ago when Florida and Ohio were crucial. That's why he was like, you can't, if you win Florida and Ohio, you win the presidency. 15 years ago. I mean, pre-social media, before smartphones, maybe.
Right.
That's also when, if you won the Iowa caucuses, you were, a dead ringer for the primary too, and now nationwide people have more of a collaborative aspect of, they can go, this is doing well, this isn't doing well in the state, and then you can change the entire narrative in 3 states. So weird. Hi, chat room. I hope, I completely sincere in my gratitude for you guys making this possible over the last year. It's a world of difference, and I see, as some of my friends and compatriots, struggle to find something that is a fit for them, because they're having to, luckily I had this radio show and porting it over and turning it into a daily thing and doing what I was doing to just kind of, the Trump rally kind of thing, turning it into other stuff. Actually, it has value, because I think it undermines the artificial seriousness of the other side. This, oh my God, the threat. Oh my God, the anxiety of what if they, and when it's fart air and they're going to fall apart, and you can tell.
30 seconds and we have 3 callers.
Excellent. I feel like there's a responsibility to just show the emperor has no clothes on a regular basis, right? Boot. My Creative Cloud is open. I'm quitting anything that doesn't need to be open.
Right.
Yeah, so in case that's what it was. Yes, quit. I'll open it later. Thank you. Thanks for your help. Welcome. Oh, okay, yeah. Welcome back to the show. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. We've got callers on the line, so let's start chipping away. Who do we have, Lady B?
We have Robert from Florida.
Excellent. Robert from Florida. How are you, sir?
Right here. I'm good, brother. How you doing?
I'm good.
Hey,
I'm good.
Thank you. I want to say this. I listened to your show, and you give the heads up on a lot of issues. And I'm not saying this just to stroke your ego, but it's true. I mean, you give everybody that listened to you at least a month heads up as to what was going on in China from, I don't know, you were watching and reading from somewhere else. And you know what? And then I called my family in Italy, because Italy went to crap real fast with the COVID. And so I took it seriously probably about 2 weeks before everybody else. That's one thing. The other thing you just said today is, Putin needs chaos everywhere in the free world so he can stay in power longer. And it didn't dawn on me until I heard pretty much what you said. And it's true. I mean, by him causing this, people saying that, look over there, there's no democracy. There's trouble everywhere. The person in Russia is going to be, you know what, maybe I stay home and I don't join this riot.
That's right. Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
It's a suburban way of keeping control. Now, there's another thing. Reason I called in is about what, obviously the story of the week is, hey, I'm on the phone over there, quiet.
Over there.
The Congress people being spied on by Donald Trump. And what he did, what he did is this. He's kind of like that Arizona thing. He just alleges that there was some kind of infraction. There's some leaking going on. They're going to control the leaking, so... what I'm gonna call Apple and have them break in and give me their phone stuff.
Right.
Yep.
So, so I think it's all a lie based on a lie, so that he can go and steal. And what? Because those two guys are on the committee that they weren't even in control at the time. The Democrats were sitting in the back seat, and still he was able to find out whether or not what they were finding out. That way he could be a day ahead of them as to an excuse or a reason or a way to get them in trouble.
Well, ultimately, there's a couple of reasons, why, Trump was, again, this goes at the Trump projection aspect of things, where he's like, they spied on my campaign. And meanwhile, he has no limitations on wanting to, on spy on other people. And what he was looking for was not whether they were leaking or something. He was, again, like Turning Points USA is taking their strategy and tactics from Russia. He's doing the exact same thing. He was hoping to find some compromise in that stuff. He was looking for some Podesta email level gotchas that he could threaten and blackmail and cajole them with. The problem he has is there's no there. It doesn't exist. And so even with the ability to look through their stuff, he didn't find anything that would be, a smoking gun or a lightning bolt or even a PR win that was worth the damage of saying he spied on somebody. So they looked and found nothing, which is which is worse because he committed a crime effectively to do it. This is, illegal spying on members of Congress. That, if he was still in office, this would be his third impeachment. No question. But the damning thing about this is that he just got nothing from it. that he was going after Adam Schiff. This is obvious. I mean, they were trying to find that. He kept saying shifty Schiff. Remember this? That was the phrase he used. I think he was using that phrase like Crooked Hillary because he was expecting that they would have some email-like stuff that they would use of Adam Schiff's in a similar way to dirty up Adam Schiff around the impeachment in an attempt to push back against him. That's why the nicknames tell you more about what Donald Trump's plan is for going after you than they do about his real opinion of you as a person. Obviously something that where Hellacious Hillary or something, or Shifty Schiff works really well. It's an automatic alliteration aspect, but it fits in the same zone as the whole Crooked Hillary thing, and that's what he wanted from it, and he just didn't get it. It wasn't there. But this is a huge story. I mean, it's in any other circumstance, this alone is bigger than Watergate in that regard. This is the manipulation. This is literally using the DOJ to spy on members of Congress who are going after you for legitimate crimes, ultimately that you only protected yourself from by pardoning people who were involved or promising pardons to them. Mike Flynn and Manafort in particular. Now, Manafort's was apparently so poorly written with crayons and hammers, as they are wont to do, that he may be on the hook for some of the tax stuff because they just didn't bother to vet it. They just wrote this kind of ham-handed version of events, and that was that. So Manafort may still be in trouble. Appreciate the call. We have time for another one. Let's grab our next call. Who's on the line, Lady B?
I have Jamie from Seattle. She's new.
Oh, right on. Jamie from Seattle. Welcome. Hi. And just so I'm curious, because you're from Seattle, how is the I understand you live in a burning hellscape of Antifa. The entire city is a CHOP now, run by leftist transgender activists with tiki torches. Something like that. I don't know. The news is very murky.
About 3 weeks ago, I went and had my hair done 2 blocks away from the CHOP area, and the lady who did it, she was like, this was completely quiet over here. Like, we had no problems over here. 2 blocks away. I'm like, oh, that's fabulous. Because so they didn't know it.
Good. All right.
It didn't. There.
Right. It didn't spread. And well, obviously, there's a lot of interesting hair that was happening in the CHOP, so they don't want to. You don't want to bite the hand that feeds you, I suppose. But go ahead. Sorry.
So my question is kind of concerning the trademarks from Ivanka in China.
Right.
What do you think about the whole idea with the connection, if there is one, with the trademarks in China, and then Russia and China both trying to ruin, the economic climate in America, and then try to then go to Antarctica for the drilling prospects and everything. Do you think that there's a connection between the trademarks from China that she got that would include their future endeavors in Antarctica?
Not necessarily. I think 100% of what Ivanka's stuff was this kind of like a soft quid pro quo between Trump and his own lawyers crafting the tariffs and just protectionism of himself. The trademarks that were fast tracked. Well, China has 2 aspects. One is face, of course. You don't want to shame someone to their face. So when you're dealing with a world leader, that kind of gifting of those kind of things is very commonplace the world over in China's dealings. They do it a ton with African and Middle Eastern countries. I don't doubt it. They do it to some degree with European countries, although I'm less versed on what kind of deals France might have internally with China. But in terms of Ivanka's stuff, this is just something they were doing to play nice with Trump, to act like they were, a plan, like basically as a way of getting something from him on the trade deal, ultimately, to soften some positions. And it was just a negotiation point. The Russia's Antarctica stuff is largely about, it's a couple of fronts. One is them just seizing any available natural resources because they don't have any other economy. So all they want to do is drill up there. And as the ice recedes, there is more area to drill and get natural resources from that just weren't available before. This is just natural expansion for them. And because they have nothing else, it's going to be very aggressive. I doubt it has any relation. Yeah, the partnership between China and Russia on mining and those kind of things is largely material building stuff. They are they're using mining equipment from China. It's not that dissimilar from China's endeavors, because they do a ton of coal mining and that kind of stuff, and oil and natural gas in their own country. So they're going to provide that kind of material designed in Russia, crafted there. But as far as Ivanka stuff, I'm sure they have some. Yeah. So Russia, sorry, say again.
So with Russia, they're more so funding a lot of this because they have like oligarchies placed all around the world, correct?
Well, they are in league with
design.
Yeah, the trademark stuff, I don't think Russia has much of a part in. I think it's just cash money flow for them. It's standard, kind of graft, low level, like corruption, political corruption. It doesn't even chart on the level of the kind of stuff that Russia does when it does material expansions. It's just Ivanka's stuff was just kind of like some pocket money as far as Russia is concerned. You have to understand, Vladimir Putin makes somewhere in the order of $146,000 a year in salary and is worth $200 billion.
Yeah.
Donald Trump is in debt up to his keister, has no material wealth, and Jared and Ivanka are largely the people in the family that are coming away with the most material wealth that they can draw from, non-debt related, not related to, like Don Jr. and Eric getting kind of a stipend from these branding deals that are falling apart as their primary way of making a living, and that dad's bills are being paid currently by maybe some level of like loans leveraged against his properties, and the money being put into his PAC that he is supposed to use for a campaign or supposed to use to help Republicans, which he is absolutely not doing. He's just spending it. He's spending it at his own omelet bar at Mar-a-Lago. And so the oligarchs, as far as Russia and the ones that align with them, those are interior Russians. The people that they deal with as far as autocrats the world over is kind of like a financial version, and in some cases a material version of a Mexican standoff, where they and the Iranians and the Kazakhstanis and the Chinese and the Venezuelans and stuff all are doing business with a gun to each other's head. It is a mob level economic structure. It's not based on back scratching. Guanxi, which is the Chinese principle of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You do something for me, I'll do something for you, which is how largely all business in China runs. You cannot run a business without some semblance of Guanxi. It doesn't start, it's a non-starter. That begins, that's more in line with what Ivanka got. That's an example of Guanxi on a governmental level. I hope that answers your question. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this.
Into your Chinese accent.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, 我说的中文说得很好. We'll be back right after this.
Hey, whatever happened with your that show, your travel show?
Yeah, it effectively got shelved by the entire experience, because I don't know how what we shot makes any sense now in post-COVID era as far as tourism in the country. First of all, it doesn't. Some of the places you can't go. And a lot of Europeans aren't gonna go.
Yeah.
I mean, I had pitched the idea for a while about doing, based on that, like, because it was Explore China, was doing an Explore Taiwan, Explore Thailand, Explore, Switzerland, whatever. I would love to do that at some point. And it's definitely possible. In terms of that, it's there's almost more fun and financial reward in doing it as a travel, like the travel YouTubers have the life, dude. It's crazy. Like, it's amazing.
Can't imagine.
It's just stupid. Like, the ones that are successful, the lower end ones, it's hell. There's always
I'm probably a lower end travel YouTuber.
Right. Just because you take selfies where at a Best Western. Look at this omelet bar. This is fantastic. Donald Trump is here. That's
Express
weird.
as a waffle maker. I love a waffle maker.
That's crazy. Ow! So yeah, don't do it while you're naked. It's out in the lobby. Yeah. That's I'm not even going there right now. I will get into a language that will make it difficult for me. We have is Paul in Seattle still on the line, or?
Yes, he's still on the line.
Okay, cool.
Yay.
And we have 35 seconds.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I'm just like looking up. There's a book called White House Inc. I'll tell you about it later.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program,
deals.
Mega Worldwide. It's now time for the happy ending. Yay!
Welcome back. We still have another caller on the line. Who do we have, Lady B?
Paul from Seattle.
Excellent. Paul from Seattle. How are you, brother?
Hey, what's going on? I beg to differ with the last caller. You know, when I look across the Lake Washington, I see a continuous plumage of black smoke just emanating from the top. So I don't know what she's done.
Yeah, with a giant Antifa flag flying on every building. I mean, it's been taken over. It looks like The Purge meets Burning Man. I've heard that's
yeah,
but with better hair.
You know, this is the thing.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about this. Now, so you know, I know you say that the QAnon is going to fade and all this, but you know, there is something known as sociogenic psychosis. Sociogenic psychosis, formerly known as mass hysteria.
Mm-hmm. Dogs and cats living together. I'm familiar. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, when you must have heard or seen the clip of this so-called physician testify before the Ohio State Senate.
Yes, with the magnets.
Saying that. Now, I'm not going to argue with. It's too stupid to argue with. She says that your blood is becoming magnetized because she said. Now this is because the vaccine has metal in it now.
Yes, right. Because it has magnets in it. Because that's how because they magnetize the nanoparticles in it that pulls the vaccine into your cells, because the greasy lipids aren't enough to do it, and they want it in every cell in your body. And I mean, I went through this. If you'll recall, like I have had the Pfizer, and for those of you watching on the stream right now, guitar picks now stick to my forehead. If you're watching right now, you'll know that there's and never mind the fact that I just can't. They just keep. It just won't stop. And everybody watching those videos, I want you to pause for a moment and remember the first time you saw someone breathe onto a spoon in a restaurant and stick it onto their oily nose. And this trick has been, and watching it fail was kind of, because you can't do it 3 times. You got to like end up cleaning your nose and doing it again. Yeah. You're like, what the heck? And you're back and forth. All those moments of failing with the spoon on the nose trick.
Cleaned my nose
for the first time in years. But basically what we're watching is someone at a restaurant failing multiple times trying to do the spoon on the nose trick. We've all seen it happen. We've all seen the kind of good-hearted embarrassment that goes along with it. Is you're like, no, this usually works. The same thing is happening on this scale with these folks. But again, these folks, that mass psychosis you're talking about is completely supported by troll farms boosting this nonsense up beyond the normal level of sort of, particulated lunacy that exists in the populace, and giving it the illusion. The QAnon thing is an example of that. The adherents of QAnon are supposedly somewhere in the order of 3 to 5 million people. If not, the number I've heard is as large as 11 million people. which includes anybody who baseline believes that there was fraud or believes that there was, in the election, or that there was some other, that they don't trust the vaccines, or they think China sent them. There's like a lot of watery zones, or that the Obama was spying on Trump, and Trump really is playing, 5D Spock chess, even though he's screwing the pooch every time he turns around. So these folks, the real number, I think, is boosted by troll farms and the like to make it look like it's more severe than it is. And once that troll farm turns to another source, and the QAnon, the guy who was posting, Ron Watkins and his son, Jim Watkins and his son Ron, were posting as Q, leading all these people by the nose. Once that stopped, a huge chunk of those people fell apart, and they were showing up on Today's Show going, I can't believe I thought Anderson Cooper ate babies. That there's a fever that breaks when you have mass hysteria as well. That's another psychological aspect of it. And that's kind of what's happening. The problem is when it happens, some people go more violently in that direction because they'd rather be right than happy.
Yep.
That's the danger of it. So my concern going forward is that these folks, they leave the psychosis of QAnon, but they're convinced that, a lot of it was right. It was just the fact that it was Trump that was fighting the cabal, and not magic, I don't know, some form of like Inviso Jesus that's like the 900-foot Jesus that Oral Roberts saw outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, sky punching it. At the cabal, and he needs your help. It used to be one of my bits about why I never understood people who killed for God, because like he needs any help killing. You know what I mean? He can create, he can create tornadoes and hurricanes and floods and lightning bolts, and he can give people cancer.
Yeah, he does seem to have it all sewn up.
But he just can't seem to get that one LGBTQ activist that's running around. What the heck? You know what I need? I need a redneck with a rifle. That'll do it.
He works in mysterious ways.
It is very mysterious. That would be the peak of mysteriosity, is to ask one of those people for help. So, and I won't go into the bit because you got to see me live. But the point being is that these folks will always have something to cling to, but usually, honest to God, it's a heightened form of religion and NASCAR. They have some sport, local team, adversarial relationship with the next town over. Louisville versus Lexington, Kentucky, UK versus the Cardinals, that kind of stuff, which eats up an exorbitant amount of brain space for them most of the time, until such time as this, QAnon level thing comes in and starts to fill all the emotional gaps that sports just doesn't do. No matter how good your team is, you don't believe that they are dunking on a cabal of pedivores who are drinking adrenochrome and kids' blood, right? And you feel like you're one of the keyboard warriors who's going to help stop this.
You're
and
special.
If you love, right, it's giving you significance, which is one of the key psychological attributes that people need, which also feeds into political extremism. People, being negotiating, operating within the understanding that other people have similar values but different execution strategies, different tactics for the same principles over time, and that you can communicate with them, that makes you feel insignificant because you're not a revolutionary anymore. You're an adult doing adult stuff. Whereas there is a toddler effect in the political extremes. If you feel like we have to it's why the word fight is so frequently used in our political discourse, when that is not what we do. It's not what democracies do. Democracies do not fight for your values and your rights and that kind of stuff. You don't amongst themselves. You fight other countries who want to stop democracies for that stuff. In and amongst yourself, you debate and you exchange ideas. You negotiate, right, to try and come out with the best outcome for people, to prove that it works, that people of different backgrounds. Otherwise, you're just fighting for a racially homogenous countries. That's really what you're shooting for. You're just saying, you know what works? Russia for Russians, Britain for Britons, Japan for Japanese, China for Chinese. It's better if we all just go back to our home tribal base. And in America, what we'll just do is create little racial tribes in this country that has the illusion of a melting pot when it's really a salad. That's what you're saying. But it's very significant to feel like you're a revolutionary, even if you never actually change anything. Even if the changes you make are incremental, the things you deride. Anyway, it's a fascinating discussion, and we will continue it every Saturday, 9 to 11 Pacific time on Chicago's Progressive Talk, 11 to 1 Central time. Please join us. Thank you to our patrons, patreon.com/Hal Sparks for your support. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you for the super chats and the bits and all that kind of stuff, and I appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time. Yeah, somebody in the
This is WCPT
in the chat.
820.
Thank you, Chicago.
You've been near the Stephanie Miller Show.
Love
every
you,
weekday,
Lady B.
8 to 11 a.m. because facts matter.
Thank you, Lady B. Love you. Bye, Lady B. Love you. See you later. Bye, Devin. Bye, Chicago.
Bye.
I think they can hear us. Hello. I don't know if they can hear us.
Bye. Goodbye.
Trying to higher pitch because it carries further, because that's how digital sound works. Yeah. Yeah. Well, they'll pop on and say bye. They're probably just running spots. It's fine. But people are saying the dopamine or serotonin reflex. That's part of it. But again, that's why what you decide about something, you think before you emote. Most people think it's the other way around. When babies emote before they think, because they're having a physical reaction to something. You're sleepy, you're hungry, whatever. If that's dictating it, that is not even an emotional response, even though it shows as an emotion. It is a physical response. You physically react. It's like being punched and going ow and being mad that you were punched. That is, your anger is in response to the potential damage done to your body, what the time lost that it will take to heal if it's a real, like your arm doesn't work right for a week. All those these are layers of things. But if you like being punched, you have a different response, right? Yeah. Because your emotional response to something is predicated on your belief about what it means. And as you get older, you make deeper decisions about what stuff means. So if someone, you're friends with calls you a dick, and that's how you guys get along.
By the Pulitzer Prize Board.
Oh, sign off, Chicago.
Darnella Frazier has been honored with.
Yes, I've been honored with. I got a Pulitzer Prize for calling my friend a dick. But the point is, that in terms of your emotional response to something, and people will push back against this, that emotions are honesty and thinking is actually the artificial. That's what you do after you consider things. But the reality is, all your life you're considering what stuff means. This is why people get used to abuse or learn to like it. It's what it's what happens to hostages. People make a decision about what stuff means, and then their emotions follow suit. And once you get into the extremes of political thought or or certainly religious thought, you have made very, very distinct decisions about what other stuff means, and your emotions are dictated by that decision. And so when you see something, your reaction is it's a good idea though. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for bringing that, Johnny Million. Thank you for reminding us all. If you see something, say something. You saw a deer licking its butt, and you told us, and we're all made better by that. So the point I'm trying to make is that people also will, because we've sort of on a psychological level, we've understood that stuff that happens to you when you're a kid can dictate how you feel as you're carrying this damage around. Well, it's not because it happened then and it's just there, because all wounds wear out. It's because you keep re-upping that based on every time this happens, it means the same thing as that happened when I was a kid and that hurt me. So that hurt is now dictated by every time somebody calls me a dick. It's like when my dad called me a dick when I was a kid, and that was bad. And so no matter how many of my friends all say it, when they say it to me, it hurts. Whereas they seem to be laughing it off, because when they say it, there's none of that damage there. If you get rid of the damage, then you can continue to say it. And everybody just thinks it's a joke word amongst themselves. And other people on the outside who feel differently about that word might think you're fighting when you're not. It's a mosh pit idea. It's why people have problems with comedy. if they've been brought up in a household where they're bad words and we don't bully and we're not mean and we do that, and it's done in that kind of situation where you now attribute all phraseology that's sarcastic or ill-fitting to the circumstance or meant to be, deride someone specifically for even an ethical reason or a moral reason or a genuine reason, it's still like, you shouldn't say, because you're carrying with you that everything is, like my kid, I have to, they have anti-bullying stuff in his school, which is great.
Yeah.
But they also, the kids started using the word bullying for any criticism.
Right.
So any criticism is now bullying. And that's not what it is. And if you can't be criticized, you can't get better. And so, we had to have conversations about this going, look, there's bullying when you're just being mean for the sake of being mean and you're constantly berating someone. If someone's rude to you, that's not even bullying. They're just being rude. They're just a jerk. Don't give them that power over you. A bully is a specific entity doing a specific series of activities or engage in certain language to get an emotional response from you. And when they get it, they further that emotional response as a point of control. That's what bullying is. Anything outside that is not bullying. It just isn't. It's just somebody's being an asshole. That's fine. That's reality. And you can, and they have no ownership of you. None. And if you give them ownership because everybody who's an asshole to you is a bully and you're being bullied, then that paints you as the victim of bullying every time. And then you respond to life that way. And so you can't, if somebody says something in a movie or something, it hits you differently than other people. And that's where anxiety can come from. It's pre-programmed. You program it yourself. And so to avoid that, you push back. So I, in watching how I see the extremists on the right and the language when they say the both sides world, I don't think that's true in the planet Earth of what they would, both sides deride as the establishment or the center or whatever, which is mostly most people being adults and going along to get along and trying to find a common ground in a democracy. Everything else is none of your business, but on these issues, we need to find something because it affects us all and we got to find a solution that works as best as we can for everybody, right? And then there's moon-based asshole, where the extremist ends are, which have value. They're like the raw vegan aeritarians who go way down the path, and if all of us go that way, we'll die. But we might learn a couple of things. They might find out that certain dietary fiber is better than other because these people live on nothing but that, and we learn something from them. But we're not going to dictate our entire lives based on the whole of their orthodoxy, right? So it's fascinating to me. I think the QAnons live in that orthodoxy. I think they live in that, that kind of bullying extreme where you only have power if you're a bully.
Identity.
Yeah. You only have power if you're a bully, and they always believe they're being bullied.
Yeah.
Because they basically, the large swath of these people have been brought up since the mid-90s when the big anti-bullying stuff started. And as much as it has value, it's like a little learning is a dangerous thing.
And there are a lot of articles, like think pieces out there about how like the Republican tough brand is being undermined by their
victim mentality.
Their desire to be the victim.
Yeah. Well, and because victims rule right now. I mean, that's, if you want spot on the news, you have to be victimized. And so that's what sells. That's what people want to say. Oh, that's terrible. You have an emotional attachment to a victim. You don't have emotional attachment to a bully the way they want, unless that bully is victimizing the right people.
Right.
But anyway, it's a great philosophical discussion. I'm glad we had it. It'll be its own little tiny video, but I hope. But it's fascinating to me to watch these people act like they're being bullied while bullying people, and they've made a decision already. And you see people like this on like what would be like far left Twitter, if you want to call it that have the same emotional response. There's a lot of overlap in these folks as far as their emotional response to stuff. Ethically, they're in a different ballgame, but they react to things the same way, and therefore can be led by the same tools. And that's what the Russians figured out. Is that the right video, the right phrase, the right hashtag, the right thing can drag you out onto the field in a situation where you wouldn't necessarily storm out there with torches blazing and a club in your hand when really there is no fight to be had.
Right.
That and on the right I see the marching orders all the time. They keep talking about they each have it's woke one week, it's socialism the next week, this week it's critical race theory, but they have these this is the target of the week. And this will bring out the right wing with the tiki torches and the clubs to fight the fight. And there is no fight to be had. There's nobody there. No one else is on the field. So they end up just bonking themselves in the face and considering themselves victims because somebody hit them. Anyways, I'm going to let you go. You're adorable and miss you. And we'll see you soon in person. And we're going to do a Chicago WCPT gathering. I insist. And we should go see Kiss together. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
I think maybe we should.
Yeah, I think we should. I think we gotta. Yeah. But anyways, all right, bye. I will see you later. Hold on, I'm going to sign off on there. 1 second. Yes, you will. Hold on. Let me jump over to my other screen, and there you go. Yay. Hi, chat room. So sorry for the choppiness. I'm trying to fix that piece by piece. I think it's just a limitation of the computer right now. We're trying to get a better one. But in a lot of ways, the new ones don't come out for another couple of months. So I'm just kind of limping by, trying to do the best I can in these instances, just paring down the show piece by piece and trying to replace all the things that are causing us consternation. And let's see. And now I'm going to go do some, and again, thank you guys across the board for the super chats and the bits, the hype trains today. Thank you, Shadow Woman and Joe and Drylithi for the gift subs. Really awesome. Angry Black Lady says, "What are we mad at today besides?" Right? Yeah. I love Amani. Again, she's whiter than I am. It's very weird. Like it's so funny. Like she loves like Taylor Swift and the Golden Girls. It's really funny. Thank you, Flamingo Down. Appreciate that. So everybody, take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And also, like in line with what we were thinking about, look at what we've talked about how people are trying to lead you out onto the field in terms of clickbait. Clickbait is prevalent because it works. And we don't really use it on this channel, and probably to our numerical detriment as far as subscribers and reach on the platform and the algorithm and all that kind of stuff. I just don't, use the Hal Sparks destroys right wing blah 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 kind of language, even though it works really well in getting people to click on a video and watch it. Because I think it's disingenuous, I think it's wrong, and I think it is ethically and morally the opposite of what I'm trying to do as I reach out to people. And like I said, and I want to again thank the trolls for showing up and padding our numbers. I'm sorry Trump is such a loser. It's got to be rough, but there's sports are coming back, outdoor concerts. Just busy yourself with something else. The Democrats will run the country like a real country for a while, and we have our extremists and you have your extremists, and they'll jockey for news position. But in the reality is most people will trudge ahead as we try to make this country better and more inclusive while driving no one out. It's such normal shit, honest to God. And that's what I think I'm enjoying most about Biden's G7 trip and the executive orders he's putting out and stuff, is that while some of it is extraordinary and that it took so long and that it's now, some things are just technologically possible now or available to us as a potentiality, like the ransomware task force that, was obviously available a couple years ago, technologically speaking, but wasn't used. That's really cool. But it's also, in a normal country, something we would do immediately when confronted by an extreme situation, right? And it's nice to see that stuff coming back. When you see the clickbait, when you see people trying to draw you in, when you see half a video going, "This is terrible, what happened here?" And they definitely, there's a level of emotional manipulation. Again, feel free to engage on this kind of stuff, but take a breath, view the context, maybe even wait a little while as it sits. Jumping in right away isn't a sign of the value of your take on something. Sometimes digesting it is the most valuable thing. And then you may find, like I do often, and you may notice that what I don't comment on in some cases that's in the news or in your feed on Twitter or those kind of things, the things I don't jump in on can tell you as much about my thought process about stuff I do jump in on. Because I will either think of it as today's toilet paper, it's going to be gone tomorrow, and it's not worth engaging on because it's just a recipe for bad feelings over no purpose, no value in the engagement. I don't mind bad feelings over a bad circumstance if it actually results in a solution. But understand that, be aware, keep your head on swivel, as we like to say, in terms of, am I being manipulated by this post? The Russians dumped a bunch of stuff about, the Russians really beat the Nazis and stuff. That troll farm dumped a bunch of stuff in there to kind of downplay America's role in World War II. They've been doing this for a long time because it aids and abets this kind of like shrug off America and its value amongst its own people. It doesn't necessarily work here. As a matter of fact, it gins up some of the patriotic movement. And I'm sure there's people who can't get enough of crapping on their own country. There's a bunch of those people, and they're very loud on Twitter, but so what? But what it does is it allows Russia to kind of go, look, they don't even like their own country. So when you're about to look at these things, and it's the thing of the moment, when these things are running through your feed and a lot of people are contributing to this stuff, maybe what your value is your ability to digest it for a little while. And you might be 6 hours to a day late to the party, but you might also contribute to something. Or in the case of, if you'll remember the Jussie Smollett kind of thing, I didn't kind of, normally if someone is bashed, especially when it comes to our LGBT allies, and the folks that are, in that group, I'm pretty quick to defend people when they've been attacked in those regards, because I care very deeply about how they feel about the world around them, supporting them if they are, that they're not left alone in that moment if they are being bullied. But when somebody like that does something like that, and my spidey sense starts to tingle, I'm gonna tap the brakes on my response a little bit until I get more information. And that is because I value helping people and supporting people who've been bullied, not because because jumping in right there shows that I care. That's the tough part. That weighing those things is what people deride as centrist or establishment or any of that stuff, or being deliberative. All the things that are getting a bad word in a democracy right now, which is ironic because it is the root of why we're here. If you don't want to deliberate, if you want an autocratic solution, there's autocratic places to go. And most of them are the places that a lot of us came from, with rare exception. So the tough part of democracy is the thing that we should celebrate. So when there's the sausage making, it's one of the reasons why I read the ACA. It's because that's what I want to support. That's what I want us to be able to look at a bill. And we did this on my live stream when we actually read the Paris Accord and noticed how many times it says, if economically feasible, without damaging your country, without blah, blah, all the outs that you have as a country, to recognize that this is a cooperative, moral engagement, not an authoritarian, dictatorial one, right? Because humans only grow and become better through their moral choices. If you're not killing someone just because there's a cop there and you'll get busted and you'll go to jail, I don't know where you stand morally. If you have the opportunity to and you choose not to because it's wrong, that shows me your moral character. And so when you create a treaty, especially around climate, that allows everybody a bunch of outs, but they choose not to use them, that shows the moral character of those countries. If you write hardline laws and rules about it or whatever, you strip all the morality out of it. It's not engagement, it's simply a law. And sometimes you need that. Murder should be against the law. There should be, police responding to murders. That's what we need, right? Because it isn't, the person on the other side isn't worried, on the receiving end of the murder, doesn't give a shit about your moral character. It's too late, right? So society, we've set up structures. They've been here for millennia, right? Some sort of law enforcement has always been around, some sort of legal structure. But when it comes to caring about our environment, caring about our social interaction, crafting laws for the betterment of other people, especially what we would consider the social contract, the thing that many Democrats care the most about, once we've stabilized some of the material needs of the people, those things need the most complexity and misogyny. The more freedoms you have, the more complex your laws will have to be to protect all those freedoms without leaving loopholes for bad actors to engage in horrible behavior. And so, again, don't fear complexity. And you will see that most people that are engaged on the extremities of political argument fear complexity more than anything in the world. They distrust it, they view it with a paranoid eye, and they worry that it will usurp power by giving any ground to the other person instead of recognizing the gaps in their own argument. So there you go. As an atheist, I don't have to filter right and wrong. Sure you do. As an atheist, you would arguably have to filter it more so, because you don't believe in any punishment after death. You don't believe that your soul is going to be burning in hell for committing murder. So you have to weigh the right and wrong. Atheist morality is more heavy lifting than kind of even the most orthodox, because they're very, very clearly defined morals. So yeah. Anyways, it's such a shame complexity makes the human experience rich and well inexperienced. Exactly, Snowy Bullets. We want the variety in the world. I prefer variety over diversity. Diversity sounds separatist. Hi.
The cats got out.
They did?
Yep.
Are they down here?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. The kittens have gotten out. I gotta go. All right. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for letting me know. Oh, look at you. You're in here. Just walked right in. Hold on. You guys want to see a kitten? Hold on. Hello, little one. Hello. Are you just walking around? Are you walking around? I know. They're just out and about. It's just out and about. Did you get out of the room? Did you get out? You did? What's going on? I know. What are you doing? We have two more fosters. Two of them went to their forever home. These two guys are still waiting on theirs. So, yeah, I know. Well, you're not supposed to be down here. I know I can't put you down. I won't put you. All right, I'll put you down in a second. All right. Hello. Are you a sweetheart? Are you okay? I know it's a new environment. You want to chew on everything. I know. All right, here you go. Hop down. There you go. You can go wander around. There you go. Go back out that way where the noise is. Thanks. Yeah, they're adorable. All right, I got to go put them back. Yay, yes. Don't forget to give a like and a subscribe and a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, pass the channel around, all that kind of stuff. It'd be nice if we could pass 20K. That will help us in the algorithm quite a bit. Those hits we got from YouTube, although they were corrected, thank you, YouTube, definitely set us back, because while they go on, they bump you down in the algorithm for a period of time because you're untrustworthy as a channel, and it takes a while to get back up, and then you're not in other people's recommended feed, or if you like this, you might like this. So I would be aligned with some of the other liberal talkers on here, and I would get pulled out of that recommended thing for a period of time, which may have, it's just why we gain 300 to 500 subscribers regularly. We lose those. So sharing it on Twitter and posting it on your Facebook page and all those kind of things, as far as the YouTube channel or Twitch, whichever your preferred outlook is, really, really helps. If we could crest over 20,000 on YouTube, it would be fantastic. If we could get over 800 subscribers on Twitch, that would be fantastic. Obviously, there are people with the tens of thousands and the millionsies, but you got to start somewhere. And that's what I'm trying to do. All right, I got to go. I got to go. Cats. Okay, bye. And this takes so long to load now. I had this thing going, and now it just takes so long to see how long these things take to kick in? Look at that. Pitiful. That is just, huh? I'm almost done, my love. Hold on. Love you. Yep. Oh, good. Well, good. All right. So they're out on. They didn't escape. They got out. Oh, that's good. All right. We're breaking out, anyways. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Trying to get out. Yeah. The plexi. Right. We're having cat talk while this is going on, guys. I hope you appreciate it. There it goes. Now the credits are rolling. Boy, that takes a long time now. We got to fix some of that. Thank you, Eric. Thanks, Can't Stop Lying. Thank you, Hal Vickery and Ben Loco. Bless you. Welcome, Light Fang, RMP, Jameer, Only Stress 40, A567, Block Party, thank you, A216, took my vote, Jexy for, and 6,000 Steph Head, and Sarah. Oh, we got some Steph Heads in here. That's fantastic. Thank you guys so much. We're low in Super Chats today, but that happens. It's early. Well, I'll see you guys on Monday. Have a fantastic weekend. Bye.